What's going on, guys? It's Mike again from BavhausTV, and today we are working again on the e39 M5. We're going to have a couple of videos on this car uploaded, so just check out the channel to see what we have posted on it. What we have done already is the entire rear subframe removed off this car, and one of the many reasons that we removed the rear subframe was actually to pull out the differential. If you look at the differential, you can tell it is just covered in road grime and oil. If you look down there, I'll give you a better shot of that. Front input shaft seal is leaking, so pretty much, or some call it a pinion seal, so the pinion seal is leaking. And we're also going to reseal the diff cover itself. So pretty much any place that this thing is opened up, we're going to go back over, clean, reseal, and reassemble. So we're going to show you guys how to do it to the best of our knowledge. We have, some sources here. I have ISTA-D to get some torque specs. We have all new parts to do it, and we're just going to take it one step at a time. So let's get into it. All right, so I think I'm going to start first with the output shaft seals. So I'm just going to roll this thing over. Here you can see really where it's leaking bad at that pinion seal. It is already drained. If you look over here, you can see that this output shaft seal is leaking as well, and this one as well. So literally all three of these are leaking at the bottom, and I wouldn't be surprised if the cover was too. So I'm going to clean it off first. I'm not going to throw this heavy ass differential, it's really heavy, into the parts washer. So what I'm going to do is actually lay out some old rags that are already used up onto this, and we're just going to clean around it, and then we'll once it's all cleaned up on this bench, we'll take all the dirty rags, throw them out, and then start servicing it. I just don't want to put new seals in where there's like all this road grime and stuff. I just don't want any issues with it. So I'm gonna throw some rags down, and then we'll get into it. All right, so just to start, I think what I'm gonna do is just roughly go over and agitate all this road grime. Gonna put some rags down, and we're just gonna spray everything. Spray parts cleaner comes off a lot easier when it's already been agitated. The cover is a little bit more complicated to clean, obviously, because the fins. So probably what I'll do is, instead of wasting brake clean on it, when we remove it, I'm going to take this just by itself to the parts washer. Now I'm just going to go over the case and clean it with a rag. All right, and then up here, I'll just wipe it off. So I am actually going to use air quick. I'm just going to go through and blow out any areas I have left over that might have some stuff packed in that I couldn't get with a rag. We're just going to take a second, clean up this bench, and get back to you. And I think the first thing we're going to start with is going to be, let's start in the front. So we'll do the pinion shaft seal first, and then we'll do the output shafts, and we'll finish up with the cover. All right, so starting out, I already just pulled some grease out of here with a pick. So I got the heavier grease out and I just threw it in the garbage. Regardless, there is a bunch of grease left over. So what I'm gonna do is just use some brake parts cleaner to break that down a little bit. So we'll just spray it around. This is the grease from the drive shaft, where it actually mates to the differential on this input pinion gear shaft. So I'm gonna go through and really try to clean this up, because the thing about the pinion gear is it doesn't really have a torque spec. The amount of thread this nut is installed onto that pinion gear actually determines where it sits inside of the differential. So there is an alignment. So it's more about the distance that the thread is on in terms of its torque. rather than a certain like numerical torque specification. So what we want to do is actually use a paint marker, mark it so we can put it back exactly where we found it, which shouldn't be too difficult, but the thing is my paint marker is not going to work on grease. So if you're in a similar situation, definitely make sure that you get this thing clean. It's just good to be clean anyway. Since we're servicing this whole thing, we can re-grease it later, get some of this old grease out, and you know, just make for a better finished product. So I still got a little bit more down there. So I always add more reference points than you really need. So I'm gonna reference this to the nut to here, and we'll probably just do a straight line across or something. And that's gonna give us a reference of where we are. So I'm just gonna get my paint marker and give it a couple squishes like that. All right, so we know that that was there, and that kind of lined up, let's say, to here. So like that, and then just in case that falls off for some reason, we'll go here, right between that little X and V, with another marking there from probably when it was manufactured. And this one looks a little off, so we'll say that. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, so it's a 32. So what I'm gonna do is just use an impact gun. I have one right here. And I'm just gonna knock it off quick, just so I can see how much torque is on it before I do really much with anything. I wanna go back and check that paint marker. And so right there, it started spinning. So you can see there's just a initial amount of torque that breaks it free, and right now I should just be able to blast it off. So once we get tight, we know that we're generally in the area, and then we just need to align it to that point. So here you'll find a nut. This can also be replaced. We do have a replacement. So once we're there, should just be able to pull this out like so, and then here's our seal. So we're gonna clean that up. Honestly, look at how nasty that is. So that's all gonna get all cleaned up. You can see some scoring, so we're gonna see what's going on in this thing. But this is the seal we're after, and you can see right there, there's that fluid. And that's where it's leaking from. All right, so this is the seal that we have for the input shaft. We have BMW 33121, 205, 138. A couple things to note before you ever touch a seal. See how this one sits just a little under? There's like a fingernail length of gap between the seal and the outer part of the casing for the differential. You want to put the new one back in that spot. Some of these have the ability to go very deep and come back out. You always just kind of want to put it back to where you found it. So I'm going to go with a rag, clean this up quick, just so nothing gets inside. And clean the shaft as well. And just make sure you can get underneath it in a way where you're not hitting the splines in any negative manner. So if I can pry it out like this, or the next best bet would actually be to knock it from the inside with a hammer. I grab a mallet and actually, let's see if we can knock it in. Yeah, see, so you can see how it goes down a lot, and that's kind of just, see, so it has the potential to go in very far, so you want to just get it back to that same point, and then we just broke that spring free, and that's what released it. So while we're in here, again, take your clean rag, take a clean end on a clean rag in this case, and we're just gonna go around, make sure everything's spotless. I like to maintain these old seals the best I can. This one's a little wonky, but I'm gonna clean it. And for the reason being, I like to use them to drive my new seals in. The best press for an old seal is, or for a new seal, is an old seal. So, at least around here. Definitely a tool to do this, but for what the tool probably costs and how often you're gonna end up doing these, it's just not worth it. Sometimes I buy the special tool, not this time. New seal is gonna go in right here like that. So before I do that, I'm gonna go grab some gear oil off my shelf. Should have some, actually, doesn't really matter what kind of gear oil. Right here, we have some Lucas gear oil, 80 W90. This diff probably takes 75, 90, but I'm just gonna take that, put it on my finger. I'm just gonna go around that inner seam, go around our seal in the same way, just like that. Put it in place. All right, so we left the diff actually standing up for a weekend after completing it. And when I came in, the pinion seal had some gear oil around it. So I immediately went and took it apart and got the seal out. So the seal was actually sitting on this flange here. So when we tightened this down, it actually pulled this seal up onto this piece and it didn't stay in the differential case. So luckily everything came apart without needing to be replaced or destroyed or anything. Like everything's perfectly fine. As you can see, I can just take this on and off really easy. So I don't know if you guys remember, I was having issues actually seating it in fully, so I stopped. But actually now if I go and measure, there's a little bit hanging off the edge there, and where it actually bottoms out in here is right there. So it does have that much more room to go down. So that's the depth that it should actually be sitting inside this case. So that would keep this from interfering with this. And then again, if we measure this, we have from here to approximately, I'd say, yeah, like right here. And then when it goes in, it's gonna sit, significantly far in. So it's this upper part that you don't want the seal to touch. So I think what I'm gonna do this time is I got the thing I'm gonna use for an installer. Again, it goes in, it doesn't get stuck, which is good. I think I'm gonna move the differential to the ground and we're gonna hammer it a little harder. The thing is that we have to be mindful of is I don't want to break any of these fins because this is an aluminum cover. So definitely a risky job that it needs to be hammered in that much. I don't know why it would need that much force to get installed, but we're just gonna roll with it and do it. So I'm gonna just get this on the ground safely, and then we're just gonna hammer it in. All right, so I got it on the ground now. I'm not gonna lubricate it this time because I think that kind of assisted it popping up. But if you look kind of where we hammered it to, it's just where it sits now. So it's definitely gotta go in. And it will start to go in on one side. If I recall, when I was doing this last, it would push up on the other side every time I did one side. But I think just having the firm ground underneath it is what's gonna help it go in. Which it is. So if you learn anything from my mistake, do it definitely on a hard surface and make sure that seal goes into that depth. This is a seal you are gonna bottom out, so you will hear it hit the bottom and the sound of the hammering will change. Like right there, it changed. You can see it's much shorter now. So I got a little bit more to go in. All right, perfect. And that's exactly where I need it to be. Just gonna measure all four corners. Okay, we're good. So if you look now, there's definitely a lip there. I'll have Justin zoom in on that spot, get a detailed view. That's how you're gonna do the pinion seal. Not a big mistake, luckily we got away with it, but had I put this immediately in the car, it would have leaked all the gear oil out. So definitely something to be mindful of. We got lucky that we actually left this for a weekend. So now I'm just gonna put it back together the same way I took it apart. And this time, it should not leak at all. Okay, I marked it again, obviously. So I'm gonna get this back to where it needs to be. just like that, we're all set. All right, so we're on the output shaft on the passenger side, and we're just gonna pop it out. It's just pressed in. So just gonna lift it out like that. Doesn't really have any specific orientation, but that's what it looks like on the inside. We have these bolts, so there's 2, 4, 6, 8 of them. They should be 13 millimeter. What I'm gonna do quickly is I have a spec here that says a side bearing cap, so I'm assuming that that's what this is talking about. A lot of times they call seals bearings. And then it says insert through bore holes only, new coated screws or screws with Loctite. So I do have some Loctite here. And then it's gonna say M8 and then 22 Newton meters or 10 Newton meters and 40 degrees. 10 Newton meters and 40 degrees is what it says for E39. So I'm assuming that's what it's gonna be. So what I'm gonna do to just quickly figure out if it's generally around that torque spec, I'm gonna take my torque wrench and I'm gonna put in, let's say 25 Newton meters. Grab my 13 millimeter, and we're gonna see if we can tighten one more than that 21 or 22 Newton meters. So it is already past 25. So actually I did the wrong way. So we would do 20. So let me just grab a new one. So let's do 20. And it seems like it moved a little bit. So let's do another one. Yeah, it moves right at 20. So that torque spec of 10 Newton meters and 40 degrees sounds spot on. So that's what we will be doing. So just to begin, I'm gonna use the impact just for making the job a little quicker. I'm gonna take all these out. Maybe if I chisel it up. Not sinking a chisel in and hammering it in to separate, just putting it up is the way to do it. All right, so here you have this flange. In this case, really shouldn't matter how it's put in, but you do have your bearings in here, so you're gonna want to be very clean. This is the seal in question that you're gonna be replacing. And then in here, there's actually a clip you're gonna want to replace as well. It is like a spring clip, and that's what holds the drive shaft, or this flange in place. So that's kind of that resistance when we pulled on it. You wanna just replace that because it just locks it. So I'm probably gonna take this to the parts washer. This won't need to be sealed, I don't believe. So we can just put that all back on after. I think just the pressure kind of keeps that sealed. Or there is a diff sealant that we're gonna use for the cover that we could potentially use there, but I think just the torque spec, that's the reason for that shim. The torque spec plus the shim is kind of what creates that gasket seal there. Otherwise they would put some sort of sealant there, which in this case, I mean, that's not a sealant, that's just old crap. I'm gonna go to the parts washer with this and clean it up. Oh, you know what it is? You don't need to put a sealant here because there's an O-ring here. I completely forgot about it. So this is what seals this from the outside. You have a gasket O-ring here. This is also what goes bad. This is actually probably what failed, not this one on the inside. The inside shaft seal would be leaking from underneath. This one leaks from the diff, and I'm pretty sure it was leaking down the side of the diff. So I'm pretty sure this is the seal that failed. So I am gonna go clean this in the parts washer. You guys don't need to see that, it's just cleaning it. Before I do that, I'm probably gonna just remove that clip. Sometimes these can be easy, sometimes these can be a pain. So it really just comes down to how it's feeling today. And what I do is I just get behind it, apply pressure against the case, and then pull it up. As long as you can grab it with something. In this case, try to get behind it. Okay, there we go. So you just get it out like that. Putting the new one in is a lot more straightforward. Just gonna quickly go, clean around this bearing, and in here. There's a groove in there that you're gonna see. If you took the old one out, that's where the new one's gotta go in. This, again, same deal. We're just gonna go with a pry bar and just kind of pop that old seal out. What you can do is, if it doesn't want to come out that way, is actually just take a chisel, flip this thing over like this, and then with a screwdriver and a mallet or a hammer, just knock it out. I'm gonna do this on the concrete floor just so I don't have a bunch of stuff making noise. So yeah, that's pretty much how you're gonna get that out. You can hear the sound of it changing. That's because that's what it sounds like coming out. Again, I want to try to maintain the integrity of this seal because I'm going to be putting the new one in. All right, so this is what it looks like now. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to grab a pick. I'm going to get that old seal out. Definitely flatten. Old, yeah. Okay, clean up that groove because I did just put it in the parts washer. I'm gonna grab my gear oil. And go around that O-ring. O-ring just goes on into place. Try to stretch it in place, not roll it. Okay, won't seal right if it's rolled. And here we have our new shaft seal. It's just like the old one, and it comes in a package with the clip as well. Victor Reigns 81-29408-00. I don't know the OE number. Okay, so now this guy's gonna go back in, which seems like it's thicker than the old one. Oh, it is definitely a lot thicker than the old one. Or maybe on this piece, maybe. No, it's this one. Feels like a more stout piece of metal, maybe. And that's gonna happen probably 500 times before I actually get it in. This is one of those weird times where you want to work without gloves, but you're also inside a differential, so I'm just gonna have to suck it up. Oh, I think I already got it. Cross my fingers. Yep. All right, so what I did is I got one side into the groove, and then the second side, I just kind of forced it over the ledge and it dropped in. Still not completely seated, but it's right. Oh, it is seated. Okay, and that was perfect. So that's done. That's awesome. Next task, get this into there. So again, gear oil. Gonna do outside of the seal. Use gear oil, definitely not oil. Some people like to mix and match. I usually just use whatever fluid is in the unit that I'm servicing. to service that unit. So like if I'm doing coolant stuff, I'll use coolant as a lubricant, oil, transmission fluid. This is the easiest way to not end up with any issues. So I'm gonna go see if I can actually find quickly a perfect matching race. I have a bucket of races just behind the camera. I'm gonna go back there and try to match something up. All right, so this is our old seal, and the race is just slightly smaller, which is perfect because you want to be able to get it back. I noticed here is that we do have a little hole in here. It's like a vent or some kind of like fluid hole, and that's the only thing that really changes the orientation or the potential orientation of where this needs to be. I was under the impression at first that this can just go on in any direction, but since there is something that's different, you do want to mark this and put it back. So we'll probably go back in the video and before we post it and at least tell you guys to mark that. My mistake, I was able to find it by my little chisel marks. You'll see me figuring that out. I'm sure we won't edit that out. But so that's all that's for. So that being said, you can take the new seal and actually drive it all the way down to the bottom lip here on this flange. And when this is like almost looks like an inner race, and it is two-piece, it is pressed in. So since this is pressed in the back, it kind of gives you the illusion that you want to take that other seal and push it all the way in. But if you look inside here, you'll see a couple things. I'm gonna use a pick to show you guys. This hole is right here, and then you have this like raw cast lip here. So you can see this marking of where there's like, it's discolored. That's actually where the seal sits. So you're just gonna hammer it down until it gets to the top of this lip, but below this lip, and then that's where you stop. So we actually have an installer just to keep the inner lip back, so we just put that in our seal. So this is what it looks like with that installer, and that's just to keep the spring back here, you know, with pressure on it so it doesn't pop out. And we're just gonna use this outer race here to hammer that in. So we're just gonna give it some taps with the metal hammer on the ground, on the concrete, and just look over. And again, you can see here it's a little bit of a better view now that everything's clean. I have the little hole and where the seal is going to go down, and you can see the marking of where the seal used to sit. So if for some reason you don't have that marking of where your seal used to sit, just look for that hole and make sure you orient it underneath the bottom of this seal, because something will go wrong if you don't properly do that. So let's get this seal in. Just going to take our gear oil, lubricate both of these, and then use this outer race from just a random bearing as an installer with a hammer. And as long as it goes in straight, you should be okay. They shouldn't give you any problems. Just don't drive it in all the way, is basically what I'm trying to get across to you. Okay, we're just gonna move to the floor. So I'm just gonna place that in again, put my race on top, and then we're gonna go down to the concrete. Try to apply even pressure to kind of set it a little bit before you start hammering. So I can see it's leaning on this angle, so I'm going to want to hammer the other side first. Okay. Oh, full installer fell out. All right, and then looks like on one side I'm already right above, but the other side I'm not. So I need to hammer more over here. More over here. And this is probably the best way to do it. If you don't have the proper installer, just check it, go back, fix it. There we go. And just get right down to where it needs to be. So one more hit here. Half a hit. I'm gonna take my rag, clean up all that gear oil that I've been using to get it in, just so I can see precisely where it needs to be. I can give it another little tap here. Now I'm just being picky with the alignment, just trying to get the seal perfectly installed, but technically it's already fine. Yep, okay. So just like that, we can take our installer out. We're gonna reuse this in a bit. And this is what it looks like when it's properly installed. So I'm just gonna clean up around here. You can see that cast lip kind of wraps up right around here. Actually, I could give it one more tap over here. What does it look like underneath? Yeah, we're gonna go back and just tap it in a little bit more because I can see it's a little raised. Again, it's not really that crucial, but if I see it, might as well fix it while I can see it. All right, that's perfect. So that's what you want to do. You want to just make sure that it's below the bevel all the way around. You'll see if anything's raised. And then just hammer it below that bevel and then you should end up exactly where you need to be. Yeah, that's perfect. It is completely flush. And then here you have your hole. And there you have your hole. That's what it looks like from the back. It leaves a little bit of room between the seal and that little, oh, it is the outer race for the bearing in here. So the bearings actually, the rollers slide on this. So I think you might, if you push the seal all the way down, you might get some interference with the cage. So that's probably why that's like that. So again, just gonna clean this off, line it up. So it's gonna be this way. Gonna lubricate this. Okay. Popped right into place. Perfect. Okay. Now we're gonna take our bolts and torque them to spec. And so let's do that now. Now, let's grab our hardware. We're gonna wipe it down. And I'm going to grab a little bit of Loctite, nothing too crazy. We're just gonna give it a little dab of Loctite. Might even be too much, honestly. So you only have to Loctite it if you're reusing the bolts. I think the original one should come coated. Alright, so just gonna go here with this, over here with this. Yeah, you can see there is a little bit of coating left over from some of the older ones. And I'm just gonna quickly go with the 13 and we're just gonna draw those in a little bit. So again, the torque spec on these isn't too high. But it just needs to be even, more important than anything else. So I'm just gonna go until they make contact. Like right there, made contact, so I'm using a small ratchet. Oh, it's got some resistance. I think it's got old red locker in there. So we're just gonna have to engage this one. Get it right there. Okay, the next four. Okay, that's good for that one. Add a little bit more to this one. Okay. Draw the last four in. Okay, so now our torque spec for this is 10 Newton meters and then 40 degrees. So we're gonna set up our torque for 10 Newton meters and then set it up for 40 degrees. It just needs to level out. Okay, so 10 Newton meters. We're gonna do crisscross. Okay, so that's this one. I'm gonna put a dot saying that that's at 10. This one's next. last one. All right, now we're going to repeat the process with 40 degrees. So this is ratcheting, so we do have the ability to go back. So it's around 35 Newton meters is what that came to. So I'm just going to fill in the entire bolt just to say that that's done. Okay. And it does feel good on the bolt, so I'm pretty sure this is the correct torque spec for this. It feels like spot on for what it's supposed to be. We'll do this one next instead. And our final one. Alright, so that's how we let it torque. I'm just going to give it a second to let the paint dry just so it doesn't end up all over me and all over the diff. And then we're just going to put that output shaft back in. Alright, now we're just going to put this flange in. This is the hole that, or the groove that circlip is going to connect to. So you're going to have to get past the circlip first and then pop it into place, and just like that, it's in. So what you can do to verify that everything's alright is we're gonna have to be flipping this thing over anyways. I'm gonna lay it on its back like this, and then pick up the front, and you can see we're moving fine. So now that that's done, that's completely done, we're going to flip it over. We're going to repeat the entire process on this side. Probably just going to film the entire thing. You never know what might happen that you guys might run into. Just going to get right back into it. I'm going to take a pry bar, immediately pop this flange up. Okay. Put that guy over there. Go right back to this. Get all 8 more bolts out. Okay. So now, try to pull on it. I prefer to not use a chisel again if we can, but I think that's just probably the best route. There, we can pull it up. Put that down there. Again, grab a cleaner rag. Clean up the surface. Whenever you're cleaning a surface like this, you always want to brush out so you're not throwing stuff in. Kind of self-explanatory. I'm gonna get this guy out since we're here. There we go. Having just done one, I'm definitely going to do this one a lot quicker. Right off the rip, I'm going to go and put that one back in. Okay, it's in. We've got this one to remove. I'm going to go back to the floor. So I'm going to hammer this one out now. Okay, so again, paying mind to the hole right there, you want your axle seal to sit pretty much where you just see this marking of where it was prior. You don't want to take it all the way down and bottom it out because you're going to block that hole. So let's do that now. Take your gear oil and we're going to lubricate the inside here, like that, and then we put an OE BMW installer into this seal, so we're just gonna put that on. So it just keeps this tension on the spring back here. So we're gonna lubricate that as well. Put the seal in. Okay, let's balance it out. Gonna go down to the floor quick and just give it a couple taps. Again, flipping it over every once in a while. We just want to make sure that it's being seated properly. So we're just gonna watch that hole. So we're just gonna give a couple lighter taps. Circle. Seems like over here it's higher, so I'm actually gonna use the metal hammer. So just gonna give it a couple taps. And it's going down pretty evenly, so just needs a couple more taps all around. Okay. Getting pretty close to it. Just above it, I'm gonna go a little bit further. And honestly, I think that's perfect. I might give it one more tap actually up here. And I think that's perfect. All right, so we're gonna show you what that looks like now. All right, so this is what it looks like now with our seal pressed into place to the proper depth. If you look right there, where I'm pointing the light, that's the hole. We were just above it. I'm not sure what the hole is entirely for, either pressure or fluid, something related to that. It could even just be balancing this. Actually, this isn't rotational, so it's not balancing it. So it's probably something related to pressure or fluid. If you block that, I'm sure there would be negative repercussions. It'd probably cause a premature leak. So definitely be mindful of that and stop that seal from going in any further. Because it does have the ability to go all the way down and bottom out on this lip. So this is what it needs to look like. And then on the other side, it's gonna look like this. Actually, let me take the seal out first. So just pop that installer out. And then this is what it looks like. It sits pretty high up. And then we can go quickly and get any gear oil out. Just keep it nice and clean. But yeah, that's it. So now let's get it installed back into our differential. So again, we're going to take our gear oil and just lubricate all here. Oh, I actually forgot one thing. Almost forgot to change this seal. So this seal is pretty straightforward. Again, just gonna pop the old one out with a pick. And then clean up inside that groove. Yeah, and you can see out here that hole where it's milled out. So there's definitely a reason for that. I can't just figure out a reason right now just by looking at it, but again, something probably pressure or fluid related. So gonna take gear oil, put it on our new seal, and then we're going to stretch it into place. Again, making sure not to roll it. If you roll it, it might not seal properly. Okay, more gear oil, we're just gonna go all around now. The inside of this needs to be lubricated as well. We'll do it quick. Okay. Going to get our washer here. Cleaning it off. Again, I want to try to put it back on the same way. It is pretty much the same hub, regardless of the way you're looking at it. But just because of that weird vent, or like that little hole, that could need to be in a specific location. So I try to make sure that everything kind of goes back, just the best way to not have any issues. So it looks like this would have been like this. see a little chisel mark there, so that makes sense. Now I'm just gonna look for my chisel mark, which it looks like I kind of got away without getting a chisel mark on this. Oh, actually I found my chisel mark right there. I would put the vent hole, or the hole facing like over there. So I'm gonna put it down like this, pop it into place, make sure it's all even, and then just start tapping it in. Again, this is just with my wrist, not my whole arm. I'm gonna go light on it. And then one hard hit gets it actually to go in, just like that. So the vent hole is right here, in the way it's oriented. All right, cool. So now let's do our bolts. I'm going to clean these all off quick. I'll probably just do that quick off camera because you guys straightforward. So we're just turning the camera off. I'm gonna get those clean and we'll start installing them. All right, so I actually went and got Loctite 271. It's supposed to be Loctite 270, but they didn't have it at the store, so it's pretty much the same stuff. So I'm gonna do a dab, bottom of all the threads, that. A little bit more than a dab. And this is only necessary if you're reusing the old bolts. If you buy new ones, it should come with a blocker on it. That pottery style stuff. Good. I don't think there's a major difference between the Permatex one and the Loctite one. They are generally the same thing. Good. Ratchet, just draw these in. Okay, 10 Newton meters. Gonna let the angle set, so we'll go right to that. So, just gonna go through this whole sequence again. Okay, now 40 Newton meters. 40 degrees, sorry. Okay. All right, the last one. All right, so this is what it looks like, all done. You can see here again where it's seated in nicely. Just double check before we completely put this thing together. Obviously, we have that ring down there. We did the seal down here. We pressed this seal in properly, Loctited all our bolts and torqued it to spec, so we know we're good. Just gonna clean this off. Again, this is the groove that that clip goes into, the cert clip. Just gonna grab your new gear oil. Okay, just go down in there, right up here on the splines a little bit. Perfect. And the orientation of this doesn't really matter, but Should be able to just pop it in. Always not. All right, and that's it. So that's how you do your output shaft seals. Next, we're gonna move on to the cover. So 16mm bolts. There should be 3 sizes. Make sure you remember which ones came from where. So we're just gonna put them on the ground next to it in order. I'm gonna start with the middle and then work my way out. Okay, so these are smaller in the back. I think the longest ones are up front. So the 4 in the back are all the same. Washer stayed behind. Make sure you got the washer. Okay. Take our cover off. That reveals our diff, and then here, there once was a paper seal. You can see it's toast. So we're just gonna we're gonna clean this up first in the parts washer. You guys don't need to see that. It's pretty straightforward. So we're gonna go clean this up, bring it back, put our new seal on, and then just torque it back to spec. All right, so as you can see, the old seal is really oil impregnated. So clearly shows that it was leaking. So this is what our cover looks like now, nice and clean. We cleaned the inside, it's not really that necessary, but we just did. Sprayed it with brake cleaner, threw it in the parts washer, sprayed it with air. This is our new seal. We're gonna put it on just like that. The thing is, you definitely wanna try to use this flange sealant. So this is BMW Group flange sealant. It's part number 83190404517. If you guys have ever done like timing chains or any kind of stuff on X5s with the V8s, they use these for the front cover. So that's why I have it and for rear differentials. But if you use RTV or something, it's too rigid and it dries too much. This kind of stays tacky. It's like almost like it's hard to describe. Like if you pump it out, like I don't cover this at all, and you can see it's like clay almost. So this is the RTV that you need to use. It stays pretty wet. So I'm gonna go over this entire thing, both sides, with RTV, or with this flange sealant. So we're just gonna put a little glob in every area. This doesn't have to be done on the differential. I'm just doing it because we're already here. So I'm gonna get this around and then spread it. Try not to rip it. It's pretty straightforward, so we'll just get back on the video once I have this on all over the place. All right, so this is what it looks like now that I just spread it. Just spread it on both sides. I'm gonna place it where it needs to go, just like that. I'm going to grab, trying not to get it on me, but that didn't work. Throw these gloves out. One thing I want to show you guys real quick. I'm actually gonna have Justin bring the camera down here because you can see when we did those seals before, the thing that I was telling you guys that needs to be open, that little hole sits right up here, and you can see that we put these in correctly because they line up. So the one on this side, excuse me, the one on this side is lined up completely straight with that. And then actually there is a cutout here in the diff itself, or in the gear, and it looks to have a hole in it as well. So there is some sort of alignment there. So make sure that these are marked when you do output shaft flanges. We'll probably throw this part into the previous videos just to show you guys what it looks like inside here. So again, mark them. All right, so next thing we're gonna do is grab our cover, and now we're just gonna put it back to where we had it. This, and then we have this going right here. So I'm gonna try to get it on right the first time. I think we did all right. Put our bolts back in. Go. Might just bob it a little bit, move it to catch a thread, and then just get them all hand tight. All 3 bolts have a different torque spec, so that's something to be mindful of as well. And we're probably going to start on the inside and work our way out. All right, so that's them all in place. Let me go grab the tools and the specs and we'll be right back. All right, and since all of these bolts are 8.8s, the torque spec is 45 Newton meters. So I'm just gonna start here in the middle and just gonna mark it. Again, I'm just gonna paint all the bolt heads just so everything's kind of matching. I'm gonna cross and go over here. Okay. Next, I'm gonna do this one. Next, this one. I'll just paint them all up after, just for the sake of the video. You're gonna sit and watching me. Okay, gonna do this one next. And I just paint them just to let people know that they were torqued to spec, so that's why. Sometimes it helps me know which ones I did, but in this case it's just to let someone know that this was done recently and it's spec'd out. All right, and that's it. So that's how you reseal the rear case cover on a differential on the E39 M5.